Welcome. I am known as Aki Tolliver, and I'm an independent researcher of Kushite-Kemetic spiritual science. This is the last part of the four-part series of the greatest story ever stolen. This video will be talking about religion, and this is the second part of religion, where the first part was spoken of in video number 3. Alexander the great general of Greece, conquered Kemet, which is Egypt, by driving out the Persians in 332 BC. It wasn't the first time that Kemet was conquered. Kemet was conquered by the Hyksos, the Hittites, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, and then the Arabs. We choosing to focus on when Rome conquered Egypt because that's when religion started. Well, you can talk about those other times where Egypt was conquered and give presentations on that as well. But to focus back on Alexander the Great, he was the first one to conquer and then give up the rightful ownership of a nation to another nation, because he was nothing but a conqueror. He wasn't one about ruling nations. So after he conquered Kemet, he went to an oracle in Kemet at one of the temples. And an oracle is one that helps guide you to your futurist path. So just like in the movie The Matrix, where Neo went to the oracle, it's the same concept. So the oracle at the time told Alexander the Great what he wasn't wanting to hear. Alexander the Great felt that he should be a god since he conquered the greatest nation on earth, which was Egypt. The oracle said, "You are not a god." So Alexander the Great leaves Kemet and gives Kemet to Rome, specifically General Ptolemy I. So after Rome and is in Egypt making a mess, a lot of the Cometians leave, take their spirituality, and some are left there, but many leave, and they also have the Romans and the Greeks also do away with them and not be in their midst. So they created a city outside of Kemet on the north of Kemet called Alexandria. And at Alexandria was made the capital by the Romans. This is a depiction of Alexandria in Alexandria, Egypt. This is a library in Alexandria called Agora, and this is where all the stolen books and papyrus that were stolen from Kemet were kept and studied by the Greeks. So the Greeks have been studying under Kemet for hundreds of years prior. We have Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, all studied in Africa and Kemet, learned the ancient mysteries. And that's where mathematics, they learn mathematics. So mathematics, a lot of the things we hear, that Pythagorean theorem, pi, all the algebra equations originally came from Africa. For specifically algebra, where we finding x, and how they were using math to study nature. So x is the variable, and how everything is kept in balance by Mayat being the equal sign. So either side of the equal sign is supposed to be equal, the balance, the duality of Ma'at. So the X was the part that they were trying to find. So that's them, the Cometians, using math to find themselves and what the hidden part of nature. So all that algebra, calculus, math, all maths and sciences, the first writings on paper came from Kemet, on papyrus was invented. The mummification, where we learn the inside of the body and what the different parts did, all came from Kemet, knowing that the heart pumped the blood and as such. None of that was known outside of Africa. So this was considered the greatest library. The Library of Alexandria was considered the greatest library because of all the stolen knowledge that they had stolen from Africa. Also, when conquering a people, you have to conquer their mind, just like Dr. John Henry Clarke said. So the Romans made up their own god, and they called him Serapis. They needed the Greeks to help them because the Greeks were knowledgeable in studying under Kemet. And where Kemetians didn't have a god, but the Greeks did. The Greeks created their gods based off the Neteru of Kemet. The Neteru were not gods, they were attributes of nature in the universe. Gods came, and God came from Greeks. So just to get that in the picture, okay? Since no one wanted to worship this god called Serapis, Ptolemy I had since no one wanted to worship Ptolemy himself, just like he was trying to be worshipped, just like Alexander the Great, he had the Greeks create Serapis Christus in 3 BC. And this is a depiction of him. So Serapis, the word consists of two, a sar, which the sar part of Serapis is Ser, and Apis, which is Taurus, the bull. So Asar, being Orion, plus Taurus, the bull, is Asar in the heavens. And that's how they came up with Serapis, which is Asar, Sar, Apis. Here's another depiction of Serapis. So this was worshipped by the first Christians, who were the Coptic Christians, were Greek, and they worshiped this god. This is prior to Jesus. This is who they worshipped. One reason conquered Cometians did not worship Serapis was because he was not born of an immaculate conception. And because they could not capture the spirituality, have the Cometians and the Kushites follow this god, they had to think of something else. So they had a meeting called the Council of Nicaea, where the Roman Emperor of Constantine created Jesus and the Bible. They made Jesus based off the Heru and replaced Serapis with Jesus. So thus, Jesus also replaced Heru. So they wanted the Africans to follow Jesus. This is the church where the Council of Nicaea occurred in Nicaea, Turkey. Notice the 3 windows, which stand for the Trinities. It's in the back there. This is the oldest known picture of Jesus. Notice his dark brown color, and that's the 12 disciples next to him. So in 391 AD, the Roman Christian Emperor Theodosius banned Kushite-Kemetic spiritual science and Greek worshiping of their gods. His armies destroyed many Cometian temples and converted them into churches. He also burns down the Library of Alexandria. This is a picture of Alexandria here. In 483 AD to 465 AD, Roman Emperor Justinian closed the mystery temples and schools and replaced them with Christianity, and end the spread of the mysteries of Kemet and Greek philosophy. The Coptic Christians who were Greek, who admired the knowledge and spirituality they were learning from Kemet, left Alexandria and built a church even in one of the temples, the great temple in Kemet. And this is showing a church within Karnak, which is one of the Commission temple, and that's the Nile River behind it. But also realize that the Arabs, when they drove out the Romans, built their mosque on top of the Christian church here. So that's what you see here is a mosque, which used to be a Coptic Christian church. But since we have a nice area view of Karnak, this is considered the Temple of Man, Amen. Notice that at the bottom right, it looks like feet of a man. And then above the church looks like the rib cage where the columns are. And in the very top left, which you can barely see, is the Holy of Holies, was the most spiritual part of the temple, which is the head of the temple. And that's where the boat of Ra was kept, in that head in the Holy of Holies. And an initiate who wanted to study, and if he was allowed to study in the temple, took them 40 years to go through the front door of that temple and to, as they, through those 40 years, enter the back part. So they had the different levels of the ancient mystery schools, just to give you some history. But notice also what this is showing, that religious people, those of the Christian church and the Arabs of the mosque, are not respecting the spirituality of other people and them building their church inside of this holy temple of Kemet. This is also a depiction of disrespect, where we see a Coptic cross carved into a column in Kemet, replacing the symbol of life, which is the Ankh. This is a Greek painting. The Greeks who admired the Commission culture, the Egyptian culture, showing themselves on the left side here, one depicted as a Sar, and we have Ani, remember the coming forth by day in the first video. He's dressed in white, being led by Anubis. Here's a closer picture of Anubis, Ampu, and notice the many circles with the horizontal and vertical lines in his garment. Also on the left side, where we have the Greek dressed as a Sar, we have those red X's on he's mummified. So what does that red X mean? The red X symbolizes the mummified Osiris, Orion. And here we show the mummified person with the red X, and he's in white. And he has the phalanx that was created by Tahuti, the fake phalanx, because nobody's phalanx is that big, that's fake. And and the first letter of phalanx is P. So we have the X and the P. And what this symbolizes, one being incorruptible, transcending of the quest for happiness through accomplishments and acquisitions. It's the unshakable peace that obliterates the tensions generated by the animal division of the spirit that we seek to resolve under the guise of happiness. Here is Amen, his arms raised like Orion, like a Sar, with the phalanx, the P, standing on the square. And on the right side there, we see the first versions of the Coptic cross. So it went through various versioning here. We see the X and the P. We see here Orion, Asar, which is Orion in the heavens, holding the crook and flail as an X, holding as an X, and that's the X part of the X and the P. And here's some more versions of the Coptic cross. Notice on the left side, the circle with the X and P in it. And we have the Greek letters Alpha and Omega. We'll get into that later. In the right side is a depiction of the Coptic cross. Notice on the top is an X and a P on the cross. Inside of a church, we notice that we see the constellations, the zodiac. Why is that? Why is the heavens, the constellations of the bull, Taurus, the eagle, the man, and the lion, along with Pisces, the fish there, the two fish? This is all zodiac. This is all heaven worship, if you say. But why is this in a church? But notice next to one of the fish, we see the X and the P. So the Ankh, which predates the Coptic cross, is we have on the left, and it's a circle at the top, and that represents the womb of a woman. The horizontal line is the fallopian tubes of the woman, and the bottom part of the Ankh is the phalanx. So the man and the woman come together, create life through the fallopian tubes. Where a baby is born, the egg meets the sperm, and that's life. There's no symbol for death prior to religion. In the middle, we have the Coptic cross. Notice the similarities to the Ankh. There's also a circle at the top, but this circle has a horizontal line and a vertical line. And then later, the Christians moved that circle to the middle, and there you have it, the Christian cross. So this is called a tekenu, or an obelisk, and there were a whole lot of them in Kemet. Here is one shown in Karnak Temple, and where the one on the right was probably taken in some European country, but there's many around the globe that were stolen from Kemet. But could the church have taken some too? Let's see. This is Vatican Square in Rome, and this is an aerial view. And if you look real close, it's a circle in Vatican Square. It's a circle. It looks like a horizontal line, a vertical line in the circle, but also an X in that circle. And what else have we mentioned recently? There was an X and a P. But let's look closer within that circle. What is that? A tekenu, resembling the phalanx of Orion, the phalanx of Asar. That's an X and a P within a circle in front of the church. Now, people have to pass by this to enter the church. And look how big it is. Those look like little ants compared. So they want it to be seen, and people actually stand by it numerous times of the year. So again, we see on the left the X and the P within a circle, the Alpha and Omega. If Kemet worshiped many gods per se, why does the church, who is against polytheism, have this symbol in front of their church? These are steeples of churches. They look like tekenu as well, obelisk. Many churches have these circular windows. This is called a rose window. I believe this resembles the zodiac. This specific rose window even has 24 sections going around it, the 24 hours of the day. So I believe this represents the zodiac inside many of our churches. And here's our many churches with the rose window. This is in Israel, the Israelites, the ones who are worshiping the calf, the one that Moses brought out of Egypt, so supposedly because Kemet was enslaving them. Even in Israel, they have a circle with a horizontal and vertical line in their square with a phalanx in the middle, a tekenu in the middle there. In our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this is the Washington Monument. This is called a mandorla. A mandorla is a point oval figure used as Jesus Christ or the Virgin Mary in medieval art. Where the circles meet, we have the fish Pisces, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Also note, in the beginnings of America, there were 13 colonies and became 13 states. And Washington, D.C. was not considered the 14th state. It's not even considered a state to this day. So just as the Vatican City is not considered part of Rome, D.C., Washington, D.C. is not considered part of 50 states. But to go back, there were 13 colonies, just as Asar was cut up into 14 pieces, and 13 pieces were found, and the 14th piece was the phalanx. So in DC, you have the 14th piece, the phalanx of Asar. And here it is. This represents Jesus with two circles crossed. You have this sign. This is in front of a church where we have God within that. And then we have the eagle, lion, the man, and the bull surrounding God. And we turn it, it looks more like the Pisces fish we see on the back of cars where it says Jesus in it. And this is Pisces, the constellation, the fish in the heavens. And if we double it, just like we double the two fish, we have, and turn it upwards, we have I am the Alpha and Omega, resembling the Alpha letter A and the Omega of the Greek alphabet. And Jesus, when he says I am the Alpha Omega, that is true, because Jesus represents the age of Pisces, which goes from 1 AD to 2150 BC. 2150 AD. This is another symbol in the church, IHS. What I believe it represents Isis, Heru, and Set. So Christianity wanted to do away with the Asarianship, which is not the worshiping of Asar, but being Asar and believing that you are Asar, you are the universe, you are divine, you are one, that you're the spirit, where Asar was over the netherworld, over the hidden, where one soul meets him and you become hidden, impenetrable. You're like nothing, the unseen, like below the horizon. That's Asar. And that you, through following Maya, become with your ancestors among the heavens. So that's what I believe this symbol means. And it also has the cross on Heru, the H. And Heru was replaced by Jesus. And that's Jesus on the cross. And we also see here that they don't show Asar because Christianity dealt away with Asar. So they have Set, his brother, put in his place here. In Kemet and Dendra's temple, the Commissions believe Heru was born in Dendra's temple, and that's where he was born on the left. He was not a real person again. He was not a god, just as Jesus was not a real person, and there's not a God. There is the divine. There is one with the all. They believe in the Big Bang, that everything came from the atom, and then that energy is still creating itself, and we're a part of that. So also see on the right that we have the goat, which is the Sar, goats at the bottom. We have Taurus, the bull, on the right, overlooking Jesus, and we have Mary, and we have the rays of the sun coming through. Okay. We also see a dog there that could be Canis Major. And the three wise men, which aren't shown, are the three stars of Orion. This is Heru baptizing Amun-Ra. Remember, Amun has ram horns and the sun above his head. So baptism existed prior to religion. They used to baptize the initiates when they were in the schools, in the ancient mystery schools, to have them proceed to the next level of their learning. So baptism was done at the temples. Where God created Adam from the earth comes from the story of Khnum, the divine potter, fashioning men from clay. So that's Khnum there, creating man from clay. So this predates religion. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 8. Yet, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art our potter. We are all the work of thy hand. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 8. Asar represents the tree of life, the Pal et Neteru, or the zodiac, knowledge of good and evil, which is Mayat. Genesis chapter 9, out of the ground the Lord God caused to grow every tree that is pleasing to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, that's the Milky Way, and from there it divided and became the four rivers, the four pillars of the zodiac. Revelation chapter 22, verse 2. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its first fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Genesis chapter 3, verse 22. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Why would God say something like that? Why would that be in the Bible? Remember that the Bible was created by conquerors, and they were trying to have the people who they conquered not follow Asar, to not follow the tree of life, which is the zodiac. But really, why do they have the zodiac all within their church? These are questions that one has to ponder. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. And beware not to lift up your eyes to heaven and see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the host of heaven, and be drawn away and worship them and serve them, those which the Lord your God has allotted to all the peoples under the whole heaven. So you're telling the people not to worship or look to the moon or the stars and the heavens, but within your church, you have all these hidden things resembling the constellations and the zodiac. Contradiction there. but it's hidden from the people who study that religion. Isaiah chapter 47:13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. So the fire shall burn the astrologers and the stargazers. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. So the Bible is saying to burn the astrologers and the stargazers. However, you have all this astrology and astronomy cosmologies in your church and in the Bible itself. Roman Christian Emperor Theodosius in the year 391 banned Kushite-Kemetic spiritual science by having Christians not eat of the tree of life, who is a Tsar. And that concludes religion. So hopefully by these 4 videos that one comes to an understanding how religion came to be, how it still is, and how a lot of the secrets are kept purposely from the masses, and how we were a very spiritual people prior of religion coming into being, and that one can leave the church and still be a spiritual person, to follow Mayat, to have no fear of death, to be at peace with your fellow man and within yourself, to not let things perturb you, to be a greater person. So, in conclusion, we talked about spirituality of the ancestors. 200,000 years before religion came into being, we were very spiritual people. We study each other and becoming better people, a better person within ourselves. We had to look at nature, look at the heavens, and apply it to our culture to assist us in feeling that we're one with the all. That there's nothing above us, nothing else above us we have to worship, that we are connected to everything, that the universe is us, within us, and we are the universe. You are the sun, the moon, the tree, the plant, the ant, and the unseen. You are the black part of space that holds those planets together. You are those things we don't understand. You're nothing outside of you that you're not part of. You are divine, just like everything else. And if you see yourself as such, we can become a better people and create a brand new civilization again. These are the books I recommend one to get. You can go to Amazon.com or your African bookstore in your city. These are some of our elders and ancestors, the authors of those books, who study African as their main modern was historians in schools. And you can find their videos on YouTube. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seen through the facet of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagined to be true. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you peace.